Hey everyone, it's Maddie. Today I'm going to be doing the horror booktube challenge that was created by Hey Little Thrifter here on booktube. If you like horror, especially vintage horror, definitely check out her channel and her Instagram because she posts some amazing pictures and reads all these books that I've never heard of and makes me so excited to read all this vintage horror. Anyway, so let's get to the questions. I have them written here on my little notebook because I use my phone to film. I can't look at my phone and film on my phone at the same time, unfortunately. Looks like the first question is, how and why did you get into horror? And for me, this is a pretty simple question to answer. I was allowed, I guess it was unsupervised, with what I was watching from a very young age. And I ended up watching horror movies before I should have been able to. Scream is and has always been one of my favorite movies of all time. Okay. I just had to go get this, the Scream VHS tape, because this movie is the reason that I love horror movies and horror books. This is a movie that somebody had owned in my family, and I would go into my dad's room and use his VCR and watch this movie over and over and over again. So that movie's for sure one of the reasons why I'm really into horror. And I remember the first movie I remember seeing in theaters is Final Destination, which is crazy because that movie came out in like 1999 or 2000 and I was born in 94. So someone was taking me to that when I probably shouldn't have been, but I've been in love with horror ever since. Let's see. What was the first horror book you read? This one's difficult for me because I just don't know for sure. But if I had to guess, I would probably say it was a Goosebumps book. I just have Curse of the Mummy's Tomb here, but I have, I'm not sure. This is number 5, so I'm not sure if this is the first one I read. I doubt I read them in order because I feel like I never did that as a kid, especially with ones like this that weren't really connected to each other. But it was definitely probably a Goosebumps book. I remember devouring these and absolutely loving them, and then watching the TV show too, which is pure gold. It's on Netflix if you've never watched it, and just watch one episode and you'll understand. Oh, The Haunted Mask. That might have been it. I remember watching the movie of The Haunted Mask. We had the VHS tape. Remember watching that a lot too. Yep. Okay, number 3 is, what horror-related goodness can we expect from your channel? For me, this one is interesting because I have all these ideas of things that I want to do that I maybe haven't seen here on BookTube. And that's not to say that it's never been done, I just haven't seen it. One thing I would like to do is a reread of all of the Goosebumps books and kind of split that up into some videos and talk about them, because I found a bunch of these at my used bookstore and it like reinvigorated my love of them. Another thing that I would like to do with my channel is I have this vague idea of a series I would like to do based on horror subgenres and tropes, and just kind of reading a bunch of books that fall into those tropes or subgenres and then talking about them and kind of, ooh, this is like the best of that subgenre, this is the worst, like based on what I think and when I read them. So I'm excited about both of those ideas. They both involve a lot of reading, but I'm ready for it. The next question, which that kind of segues right into, is, do you have any favorite themes or subgenres that you like in horror? For me, I really enjoy an isolation type of story. Something like The Ruins by Scott Smith, where there's a small group of people that are in this specific area for an extended period of time for one reason or another, and it like scary stuff happens. Or I also love a good haunted house story. I'm also a really big fan of indie horror. I don't know if you would consider that to be a subgenre, but I found a lot of really good stuff on like Kindle Unlimited or recommended here on BookTube that I would have never read before, and I just like some gold books that are indie horror. So those are probably a few. The next question is, name an underrated horror novel or author. I don't have a specific one for this, but I think that women horror authors in general are underrated, and I think it's getting better as time goes on. For example, Stephen King did the Flight or Fright collection of short stories, which had 17 different stories in it, and none of them were by women. There was a really cool collection that came out in response to that called Flight into Fright or Fright into Flight or something like that. And it was all women. So that's really cool. I just think that it's easy to recommend Stephen King or Josh Malerman or Richard Lehman or somebody like that who everyone knows, but it's like women write horror too. Women write really good horror too. So like read some Jennifer McMahon, read some Alma Katsu, read some Shirley Jackson, like read horror written by a woman for once. Next question is name an overrated horror author or novel, and I think it could be really easy for this question to say Stephen King, just because, I mean, he is a prolific writer. He's written a lot of stuff. I enjoy a lot of his stuff, but I feel like whenever someone's recommending horror, they automatically go to Stephen King, and it's like, there's so many other horror authors out there, so many other really good horror authors out there that aren't Stephen King. So I guess I could say Stephen King. Yeah, I guess I'll just say Stephen King because it's easy. So the next question is to recommend 3 of your favorite horror novels. So I grabbed a little stack here. This is in no way my top 3, but these are ones that I happen to own that I really liked. The first one I grabbed was The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, and I also think We Have Always Lived in the Castle is an amazing book too. I might like that better than this, but I don't own that one. For some reason I got this one as a gift. It's the really cool like Penguin Classics one. If you've watched the TV series that's on Netflix, it is in no way the same as this. They're very different, but I still think this is amazing. The other one, or one other one I grabbed, is Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill. I feel like we talk a lot about Nosferatu, but we don't talk as much about Heart-Shaped Box. And I remember reading this book like pretty soon after it came out, and I didn't know that Joe Hill was Stephen King's son. He is, if you don't know that. But gosh, when did this book come out? Was it 2007? Yeah, 2007. I remember reading this when it first came out and being blown away, and I gave it to my dad and he read it and liked it, and I gave it to my sister and she read it and liked it. So this one's amazing. Oh, I should probably say this one is obviously The Haunting of Hill House is obviously, it's about a haunted house. It's about 4 people who go into a haunted house to kind of investigate, is it really haunted type of thing. Heart-Shaped Box is about a guy who buys a suit online. Like he collects like haunted objects or creepy weird stuff, like he has John Wayne Gacy letters or paintings and stuff like that, but he buys this suit online that is supposed to be haunted, and this is kind of what happens after he does that. And the last book, those are 2 more traditional type horrors, but I'm also a really huge fan of like comedic or lighthearted type of horror, like My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Now, like scary stuff still happens in this book, but there's a lightheartedness and just a really lovely quality to this book. It's also about 2 teenage girls, and there's nothing better I like than teenage horror, so this one's the way to go. This one is about 4 friends, they're girls. I think it's like spring break or summer break perhaps, and they're out at a friend's cabin or her like boathouse, lake house type of thing, and one of them gets separated from the group and they can't find her until the next day, and it ends up that she starts acting really weird and her best friend thinks that she may be possessed. The next question is recommend a book for someone who is new to horror, and I think that My Best Friend's Exorcism could definitely go for this, especially if you want something lighthearted. But I also grabbed Bird Box by Josh Malerman, especially if you've seen the Netflix movie. I think that this might be one to try. Just to read a book about a story that you kind of already know, this could be a really good one. It's not terribly long, and I think that the way that the book is set up is a lot better than the way that the movie was set up. It's not one of my favorite movies. Which is funny, because that brings us to our next question, which is film adaptation that you love or hate. And I could definitely say Bird Box. I did not like the Netflix movie. I barely even wanted to finish watching it, but I did. But one that I really liked was It Part 1 from like 2017 or 2018, whatever that was, the one where they're like little kids. I like that one a lot. Not as big of a fan of the second part, but I love Bill Hader, so I'm gonna watch that movie until the end of time. But I definitely think that the first part was a lot stronger. The next question is How do you discover new or new to you horror books? One way that I do that is here on BookTube by following or watching specific channels and people whose taste I really like and that actually read horror, like Hey Little Thrifter, who created this tag, Coral from Pretty in Paper Cuts, Jason from Jason's Weird Reads, Rachel from The Shades of Orange. Those are ones that I can think of off the top of my head that give me good recommendations. I also follow Ladies of Horror Fiction on Instagram, so they recommend a lot of female horror books where the like female authors. And then sometimes I just do some digging on Goodreads or do some like Google like horror books from X, Y, or Z time or whatever, and or like wilderness horror or haunted house horror, and then you get like a list from random, you know, like websites like Bustle or BuzzFeed or something like that. Next question is the last horror book you bought, and actually don't have it here with me because I ordered it online and it hasn't come yet. I just ordered it yesterday. But I ordered Psycho by Robert Bloch. If you didn't know, Psycho was a book before it was a movie, and it's about Norman Bates and Marion Crane. Marion Crane goes to stay at this hotel, Bates Motel, that Norman Bates owns or operates, and bad shit happens. And the last question here is, what horror book is at the top of your wish list? I'm really excited for Grady Hendrix' new books. I think it's the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. That might be what it's called. That one I'm really excited about because it just sounds freaking amazing. Like, I don't know where he comes up with these ideas, but he does, and we are so grateful to him for it because it kills me. So yeah, that was the horror booktube challenge, horror booktube tag challenge thing. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope maybe you got a book recommendation, or maybe you're interested in future content that I'm gonna put out. That'd be super awesome. If you are, you should like this video, subscribe, leave me a comment down below, leave a little chit chat, and yeah. Also, if you have any horror recommendations, I will always take those in the comments. I wanted to show you guys my shirt. I got my Friday the 13th final chapter shirt on. So, we're living a horror life here. Okay. All right. So, anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.